Hey guys, what's going on? Today I'm bringing the aftermath of the 1994 Buick Regal. Man, this thing is done. I can officially say that for sure. But if you haven't seen the grandstands footage or the GoPro footage, go watch that now. It's going to tell the story of this car. So without further ado, let's get into this thing. So I was put out there with probably, I believe it to be a team of 4. All the Camrys there were a team of 4 in a heat of, I think, 13 or 14. So I knew the odds were against me from the start. I mean, it is what it is. And honestly, the fact that I took 3rd in this thing kind of surprised me. I didn't think I was going to quite make it even to that point. I started sending this thing pretty soon on. I really didn't think it was going to quite bend that bad, but I didn't think I was going to make it down to the top 3. But, well, here we are. This thing is beat, though. Completely beaten and abused. She bent in very funky places. It was a very quick, fast-paced derby. The track was real dry, and there was a lot of room for these cars to move. And we'll actually start off at the back end here and get our way to the front end, but I just want to go once around it so you guys can see the damage. And here's the problem child, but we'll get to that in a minute. Let's focus on the back end for a minute here. So the trunk did go down a little bit. That's pretty evident by the bumper. What's weird is that when I was trying to pre-bend this thing, it just did not want to pre-bend. For whatever reason. I think the frame rails are really solid in the back end of this car. They were looking quite good still. Actually, this dent right here, this paint missing, actually wasn't from the demo. That's from where I tried to pre-bend this thing. That's how hard I was trying to put this thing up. But the frame rail on this side did start to go up in my second notch, but the first notch it went straight down. I think I attribute that to the fact that I hit somebody real hard with the trunk, and that, well, isn't the best thing to do when you're trying to make a trunk go up, because you really want to get the slow hits to start rolling at the notches and then start making the larger shots. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. This thing's junk anyway, so it doesn't matter what the trunk does from now on, because it's never going to be ran again. And here's the floor. Sorry about this piece of wood. Move that real quick. Yeah, she's completely blown out. But what's even more interesting is you'll see the floor is going straight down here. And that's because this thing blew out all the way up here. And let me tell you what, she blew out bad. The B-pillar is no longer attached to the car at the bottom. That's the trailer right there you guys are seeing. This thing started blowing out right here, right through here. And I watched it happen. After I got hit by the Accord, I was seeing all of this happen. I knew that it was starting to collapse, but after that Accord hit me in the back here, you can actually watch on the grandstands footage, you can watch this area of the car blow out right here. There's where the floor's all going here. You would have thought that would have been the bad part of this car, but that's not the case. The bad part is the front end. Oh, let me tell you, this thing is completely screwed. I don't think I've ever bent a W body this bad. It's bad. Now I must make a confession. This frame rail on this side, this passenger side frame rail, was a little rotten. It was the most rotten Buick Regal frame I've ever had, and I'll show you guys where it is in a minute. And it did, I think, affect how this frame rail bent so fast. So, where to begin? The subframe is dragging on the trailer right there. That's how far down it is. That's how far down it's when it's just completely pushed down. The Inside here you guys can see the CV axle is rubbing on the subframe, the cup for it. I mean, that oil filter is just begging for its life right now, because that cup splits apart, it more than likely will throw some shrapnel into the oil filter and kill it, and that would cause me to run out of oil. My front motor mount, my brand new front motor mount, is completely ruined. It's completely trashed now. What you're seeing there, that piece of metal, is part of the fan. The fan backing of the metal off of it separated and pushed into the where the AC compressor is supposed to be. This strut is blown back and in. The front suspension's pretty screwed on this side because of all the shots I was taking on it, and on that side as well. The front suspension on this car is trash. And then we get to the bad part. Hoo, hoo, hoo. Oh man, did this thing take a beating. Look at this strut tower, guys. I can stick my fingers in between the gap where this thing's supposed to be still connected. It is ridiculously bent in. The water pump was rubbing the frame there. You could actually see the sparks in the GoPro footage and in the grandstands footage of this thing throwing sparks. At first I thought it was my rate alternator grounding out or something against something, but even that's not feeling the best. But my water pump doesn't even really spin anymore, and that strut tower splitting. It started bending at the firewall. Yes, it did, right back here, and I believe it started bending over there too. But a little bit more evidence of that is when you look in here. You guys can see all those seams splitting, even right back there. You see the cracking of that, basically undercoating, I guess it would be. I did lose a plug wire. It simply just came off because the engine had dropped so much that it just couldn't reach it anymore. The engine is, here's where it's supposed to be, right here. This is where it is now, obviously. That gap is probably a 6 to 7 inch gap. I mean, it is ridiculously bad. Oh, by the way, the aluminum bracket, it went one step above. I thought it would break here, or on here, or bend the metal here, how it did on the last Regal. No, it went one step above that, and it broke it right off the head, basically. You can see where the rest of the motor mount is bolted to the head. It broke, snapped clean off. The entire EGR system is completely pulled out of the intake. It ruined the intake. That's probably why this thing doesn't run anymore. Right there is because the intake got blown out. That's probably what caused it to run so bad in the Derby in the first place, or after a little while, because that intake started having that EGR pull out and it was introducing a bunch of air in there. So no wonder why this thing doesn't run right. You guys will see, I thought it was an electrical issue, but I just figured this out well, right about now, that's why this thing doesn't run. If I plug that thing back in, I about guarantee I can make this thing run. Let me go ahead and show you that clip now of this thing trying to run. No, something's funky. Yeah, something funky electrical is going on. So as you guys just saw, I thought it was an electrical issue or something of that nature, but it isn't. I would bet it would be on that. If I plug this back in, this thing might just still run. But the good old 3800 fought to the end. It tried. It was running real bad, but that's why, right there. So there's your answer to why this thing started running so bad. I about guarantee this thing was already more than halfway pulled out. So there's your answer. So next year, or not next year, if I ever derby one of these Regals again, we're doing an EGR bypass. There's no way I'm going to leave that thing in. But that really affected the way this thing was running for sure. But overall, guys, this thing is absolutely destroyed up front. I actually broke the radiator on this thing. Holy crap, I actually junked a W-body radiator. And you guys can see the other piece down there where it's supposed to be in there, but it's no longer there. But one thing I will say for sure is this thing's junk, for sure. And also, this right here, don't know how well you guys could see it, right there, that's where she was rotten. Right where she bent. So, oh boy, I didn't think it would go that bad, but this heavy bumper that was still on the front of this car by the end of the Derby, the only reason it ripped off is because when they were taking me out, they had a chain tied around here. I had a flat, my tires weren't steering the right way, it was so much pressure that it ripped the metal out of the bumper. It did not rip the welds, it did not rip the crush boxes, it ripped the metal out of the bumper. So, I have to say, those little welds did a darn good job. So, that's just, I mean, basically that one is best case scenario. And the only motor mount actually holding in this car right now is this one right here, this front motor mount that I put on. And now I will address, after I show you guys this other motor mount, or this transmission mount. There you go. You guys can see that one's destroyed as well. And this CV axle is rubbing the subframe. This trainee hose, or trainee line, I don't know how well you guys can see if my camera would ever focus down in there, but you guys can kind of see it. It's completely flattened. There's no way that's circulating. I can't believe it's not leaking. Perhaps that little transmission line, it's a champ for not leaking. But now I will address what I did as far as motor mount goes on this thing, because I did change up a little bit on that motor mount in the back here. And the answer is I just cut it in half. I cut the sucker in half and I just left it the way it was, because the thing is that what caused that transmission housing to break was the torque on it. Well, it didn't break this time, so I'm gonna go ahead and say that my trick worked. And honestly, this thing ran as long as it possibly could have, considering the fact that the shape it's in now. And by the way, there was another spark plug wire pulled out of the coil pack. I plugged it back in. It was just a little bit loose up there. I just clicked it down and that was it. But man, this thing has seen better days. By the end of the night, she was basically every time it'd shift, it was smacking the motor mount there into the engine. I mean, man, this thing was really hurting. So I'm pretty happy with how she did, considering the fact that she was pretty rotten up here in the front and how hard I was hitting. And I took that Camry head on that side, and it barely just started to bend that frame rail over there. This frame rail is basically still straight. It just started to bend it. A funky little spot down here. I think it's because the other side was bending so bad, it started bending in a funky spot over here. You guys can see that bend right there. Kind of weird, but well, that pretty much I think sums up the aftermath. I do want to address a couple things that happened while I was driving though, that kind of made it possibly look like I was sandbagging. One time I did stop, and you'll see it better in the GoPro footage. This seatbelt locked on me, and it locked hard. I don't know why it did it, but it did. I didn't have my foot on the brake. I mean, it couldn't. The only way this thing locks now is mechanically. And for some reason, for whatever reason, you guys can see I can, okay, there it goes. But for whatever reason, it locked on me and it would not let go. That actually happened in my my 93 Regal, I believe that happened. And but this time it wouldn't let go for whatever reason, and finally I just had to make another hit before it actually released, or it called for a red flag, and for whatever reason it released. It was pulling against my chest so tight it was almost making me gasp for air, just because it was so tight against my chest. And also no power steering really did affect the Derby for me. No power steering is something you never want to run without, I found out, at least not in one of these W bodies. Not in one of these cars, especially with a flat tire in the front. Man, this thing was a headache to steer. And I don't mean to be complaining, but I've been sore. I had been sore for a few days before that, because just going ham on this car, for whatever reason, my body has just been really sore recently. And I don't know whether it's just because I've been going to these grandstands, sitting there for several hours at a time, and not really having a good, posture or whatever. I don't know, but my entire back and my shoulders have been killing me, and when I tried steering this car, man, did that hurt a lot. And but I got her done. At least I was able to put on a decent show with it and try to hit at people as hard as I could, even though I had no power steering and sometimes missed some important shots. And you guys will see that I missed specifically that Camry wagon just because I couldn't steer the car enough into his wheel. But that's something I'm definitely going to try to run with in the future, is power steering, up until the time I either lose the belt or obviously lose the lines. I'm going to try my best to try to keep the power steering in these cars, because I've realized that power steering does make a huge difference as far as making shots, especially in a fast-paced derby like that. Oh my goodness, those shots make the difference. So that's pretty much going to sum up this video, guys. I think she's officially done. It's sad to see. I finally junked a Regal after the first time in the front end. Man, she is really junked. So, alrighty guys, stay tuned for the stripping process. Stay tuned for Impala updates, and stay tuned because there is another car lurking around that you guys may have saw in the background. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye bye everybody.